It's a Wednesday edition of Locked On Grizzlies, and I admit that I came in a little bit too hot yesterday. I was a little too angry. I apologize to absolutely nobody. I wasn't angry enough. And thankfully, in my rage, I came to grips with a reason, the only reason that it makes any sense that Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. would have been rated so lowly by my fellow hosts over at the Locked On NBA Podcast Network. I'm going to explain that and more on this edition of the show. Let's lock in.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to this Wednesday episode of Locked On Grizzlies. It is I, Joe Mullinax, once again flying solo. I know I said the dynamic duo would ride once more. I'm sorry for the tease. I promise it's going to happen again soon. Life gets in the way sometimes, right? Life finds a way, as Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park once famously said. In this case, it found a way to separate DeMichael and I once more, but I promise we will be back together on an episode of Locked On Grizzlies soon, and it will be glorious. But for now, for the next 30 or so minutes, you've got me, Joe Mullinax, with you on this edition of Locked On Grizzlies. And I'm the angry one, right? So when there's things to be angry about, it's a good thing that I'm around, right? Make sure that you're liking, commenting, rating, reviewing, subscribing wherever you get podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, YouTube. We are proud members of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team each and every single day. Hopefully we are your first listen, each and every time that an episode drops. And hopefully you are an everydayer at this point, checking out the podcast whenever the show is up and new. Obviously getting back into the swing of 5 days a week, 5 episodes a week. Here I am on this Wednesday with you, continuing to break down the debacle that was the Locked On NBA Top 100 list. And the main reason it was a debacle, if you missed yesterday's episode, it was shouted out on the Locked On NBA podcast. They had some fun with me, and that's fine. I'm totally cool with it. You know what I can handle? Since 2012, baby, I can handle being poked and prodded a little bit, if you know what I'm saying. I am unapologetically me, for better or worse. And I refuse to apologize for my take on, if you're watching on YouTube, the list that was the bane of my existence yesterday and continues to be the bane of my existence. We'll talk more about the actual top 10, other takes from the overall list, not necessarily Grizzlies related at the end of the show, but what drew my ire and went not quite viral, whatever a level below viral is the list that's currently on the screen for those on YouTube. Number 21 in our top 100 players at Locked On NBA was Jaylen Brown, Pascal Siakam at 22, Paolo Banchero at 23, James Harden at 24, which to me, that's the most ridiculous one. Jaren Jackson Jr. at 25, then Trae Young at 26, Darius Garland at 27, Ja Morant at 28. And if you missed the show yesterday, I highly recommend you go back and check it out. I'm not going to go back down that rabbit hole too deeply because my heart rate got elevated. I was screaming. I got a message from my wife. "You're yelling," she said as I recorded the episode with DeMichael the other day. So I'm going to keep my composure on this particular program. But I am going to share what I believe is a logical, conspiracy-riddled theory as to why my fellow Locked On hosts did such a terrible job ranking the Memphis Grizzlies. Because it was just bad, right? And again, I do stand by asking them to come on the show over the next calendar year and inquiring as to what their logic was. Because their logic was flawed, whatever it was. And I can't wait to shoot it down and belittle it, to be honest with you, on regional/national podcast airwaves, broadcast waves, podcast, whatever the phrase is in 2025. I want to know why they believe James Harden in 2025 is better than Jaren Jackson Jr. Why James Harden is better than Ja Morant. How you can possibly put Cade Cunningham at number 15 on a list where Ja Morant is number 28. I can't make that connection logically. I just can't. And I don't think that makes me a homer. I have people in the comments on YouTube almost daily asking me to no longer be a host on Locked On Grizzlies because I hate the Grizzlies so much. So I would argue that very few people would describe me as a homer in terms of my career following the team, whether it's blogging, podcasting, what have you. And yet, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills that Jaren is number 25 and Ja Morant is number 28. But here's my theory. I think I've been going about this all wrong. I have been saying, don't they remember? Have they forgotten what Ja Morant is and can be? Did they not see those last 15 or so games of the regular season? Did they just tune the Memphis Grizzlies out? And I actually think it's the opposite. I think they do remember. I think that they do hold on to, not quite as intensely as you and I, dear listener, dear viewer, but I do believe they recall the Memphis Grizzlies day on ESPN and the rocket ship that was attached to Ja Morant and his Memphis Grizzlies ascending to the top of the National Basketball Association, being the Oklahoma City Thunder before it was cool to be the Oklahoma City Thunder, being the team that was doing the laughing and jovial end of game interviews, dancing, coming out of the tunnel to various forms of music, having a good old time being around one another and being the bane of the existence of NBA teams. I believe people remember that. And I think they remember the Ja Morant suspension and the Ja Morant injury prone and the issues with fouls for Jaren Jackson Jr. that DeMichael talked about on yesterday's show. I think they remember those things, and it's accentuated negatively because of the way that the Memphis Grizzlies have fallen from grace. And it's led us to here. It's led us to a place where members of the Locked On NBA podcast family believe that 3 players on the Cleveland Cavaliers are better than Ja Morant. 3. It's led us to a place where the Locked On NBA podcast family thinks that Evan Mobley is 9 players better than Jaren Jackson Jr., despite the fact that Jaren is a better two-way player, and I'll argue that all day till the cows come home. That's an old person way of saying, as long as I'm breathing, I will make the argument that Jaren Jackson Jr. is a better two-way player than Evan Mobley. Is Evan Mobley a better defender at this stage of the game? Maybe. I'll hear that argument. Mobley can't touch Jaren offensively. And Trae Young or Darius Garland in front of Ja? As I said on yesterday's show, there's plenty of folks that would trade Trae Young for Ja Morant today. They were trying to do it months ago. And Darius Garland, if he's the 3rd best player on the Cleveland Cavaliers, he should put up better numbers than he does. Because everybody's going to be paying attention to Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley. So how come Darius Garland isn't projecting like a top 15 or 20 player? Probably because he's not. And he's not a top 27 player either, unless that list includes Ja Morant in front of Darius Garland. James Harden at 24 is the most egregious thing of them all. Again, in the year of our Lord 2025, to make that argument. I think it's because the hosts were burned by the Memphis Grizzlies. Some of them hold on to the suspension stuff way too tightly. And again, that comes from somebody that folks say, I talk about the suspension stuff too much. Memphians say that. Folks that are everydayers to our podcast, that comment almost every day, and I appreciate them doing it. I read the comments. I don't respond every time, but I read them. Why do you talk about the suspension? Stop bringing it up. Clearly, there's people that still hold it against him. His lack of availability is connected to that suspension and that run in his career. It's injury-based too. But I think that people remember, because of the negativity that has surrounded the roster and the organization the last couple of years, they hold on to that. And they struggle to hold on to what the Grizzlies were and what they can be. And it's not just me waxing nostalgic about a bygone era that may never return. I saw it with my own eyes. Game 3, first round of the Western Conference playoffs. Ja Morant had OKC on the ropes in that game. Is it probably Thunder in 5? You betcha. But the Grizzlies win Game 3 if Ja Morant doesn't get injured. There is nothing that any of you can say that will ever change my mind on that. And Ja Morant was the major reason why OKC was shook in FedEx Forum in that game. 27 dudes are better than him. 24 dudes are better than Jaren Jackson Jr. I think people are holding on to negativity and allowing that to impact their perspective. That is my viewpoint. When you could easily do that about a variety of other guys that are ranked in front of Ja and Jaren, and they are not being given that same treatment. Do you agree with me? Is there a conspiracy theory? Do folks hold on to resentment towards the Grizzlies, and that's one of the reasons they've ranked these guys so low? Hit me up in the comments. Let me know on X at Joe Mullinax. When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, we've talked about Ja and Jaren a lot. Nobody else is being mentioned. Is there any other Grizzly on this list? And where is the one that maybe would be the highest ranked in Santi Aldama? We'll talk about that next here on Locked On Grizzlies. Stick around. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by 5-Hour Energy Transfusion for the win. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. This grape, ginger, and lime-flavored shot brings the iconic taste of a golf course favorite to a non-alcoholic boost. It's perfect for sinking birdies or making great memories with friends. It's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Whether you're out on the course or just need a little extra push to power through the day, 5-Hour Energy Transfusion delivers the clubhouse flavor you love without ever leaving the green. I got to admit, I'm not the best golfer on the planet, but every once in a while I can hit a drive for a good 250 yards or so because of my size and my strength. I like to hit those shots and then take a big shot of 5-Hour Energy Transfusion to help get me through the next few holes where maybe I'm not so lucky. Golf is all about good times with good people as well as good flavors. The grape, ginger, lime flavor of 5-Hour Energy Transfusion gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without leaving the course or chasing down the bev cart. You can amp up the fun even more buying, snapping, and entering for a chance to win a dream golf trip for two to any golf tournament in the United States. Tee up that trip. Visit 5hewin.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters tournament, and this ends on October 31st, 2025. So let's take a look at the last 10 this time around, because we've looked enough at, and again, if you're on YouTube, I have it pulled up again just for old time's sake. We've looked enough at this Jaren and Ja stuff. It just makes me so angry. Like James Harden at 24, Jaren at 25, Ja at 28. Utterly absurd. But now I'm going to pull up the final 10 of the list, 91 through 100, because as I went through this exercise personally, I knew that Santi Aldama, if he was going to make the list, was going to be in this realm. Christian Braun, Jalen Green, which is hilarious, number 92, Jalen Green, Jakob Poeltl, Nikola Vucevic, RJ Barrett, Peyton Pritchard, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, CJ McCollum, Anthony Simons, which again, hilarious, and then Toumani Camara. Those are the final 10 of this list. And that means that our boy Santi Aldama did not make the cut. The list after those top 100. So 101, Stephon Castle. 102, Nick Claxton. 103, Devin Vassell. 104, Mitchell Robinson. 105, Jalen Duren. 106, Walker Kessler. 107, Dylan Brooks. 108, Andrew Wiggins. 109, Mark Williams. 110, Shaedon Sharpe. 111, Santi Aldama. So Santi Aldama, according to our hosts, the 111th best player in the National Basketball Association. And this might surprise you. I'm not outraged by this. I'm not outraged because if the Memphis Grizzlies had kept somebody by the name of Desmond Bane, and again, if you're on YouTube, I'm looking at the top 41 through 50 players in the NBA now. Scotty Barnes, Jalen Johnson, Julius Randle, Aaron Gordon, OG Anunoby, and there is Desmond Bane at number 46. And it's weird to see that Locked On Magic logo still, yeah? At least it weirds me out at least. Because Desmond Bane, if he was still in Memphis, the Grizzlies would have a third guy, right? There would be a third dude, and they'd have three in the top 50. Three of the top 50 players in the National Basketball Association would have been members of the Memphis Grizzlies. It's pretty good. Maybe I'm less angry about the list, if that is the experience, if that is the reality. But maybe, again, turning the conspiracy theory mirror on myself here, maybe part of my frustration is understanding that in order for the Grizzlies to actually be a postseason team, in order for them to be a 1-6 seed in the Western Conference, they're going to need Ja Morant to be better than number 28 and Jaren Jackson Jr. to be better than number 25. If those two guys are there, if that ranking, which again is utterly ridiculous, and I refuse to believe it to be true, but let's live in this crazy mixed up universe where it does wind up being fairly accurate. Are the Grizzlies a playoff team with the 25th and 28th best players in the National Basketball Association, and their third best player being number 111 in Santi Aldama? Probably not. So let's flip the script. How much of this is me projecting my concern about the Memphis Grizzlies' lack of talent on the roster? That's a fair question. I think that Ja Morant is legitimately better than James Harden at this stage of their career. I think Jaren Jackson Jr. surely is. But if we are being honest with each other, this list, for me, further confirms that the Grizzlies have a talent gap. There is a significant difference between what Memphis was in terms of their top-end talent and what they are now. Now, we've talked here, there, and everywhere on Locked On Grizzlies about how you can argue that was a bad choice and how you can argue that was a good choice. The Grizzlies are better positioned for the future financially in terms of draft picks. All that stuff is true. They are primed to build around Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. moving forward into the second half of this decade. That's fact. But it can also be true at the same time that the Memphis Grizzlies have hurt themselves in the short term. And it's hard to not look at this list and think that, again, I said it yesterday when I was angry and raging, these guys, we get paid here at Locked On NBA. Like, we're technically professional podcasters. These are folks that it is their hobby, job, part-time gig, however you want to phrase it, to follow the NBA pretty closely and to give their honest opinion. And this was not just one host's list. This was the list in terms of ranking from every Locked On NBA host. There's over 40 of us, maybe even more. There's dozens of us podcasters that took part in this. And the average put Ja at 28 and Jaren at 25 and Santi Aldama at 111. So some people were higher on them, but that means some people were probably a little bit lower. Where does the truth lie? Who are these Memphis Grizzlies? Maybe this list just confirms that uncertainty, that we truly don't know, because so much of it is tied up in Jalen Wells and Zach Edey being able to be improved sophomore players, not experiencing a slump like a lot of second-year guys do in the NBA. A lot of it perhaps depends on a Cedric Coward who might be a ghost. The Memphis Grizzlies might have selected a specter of some kind, a spirit that floats from the nether to the gym to shoot every once in a while. And people say that he's a basketball player that can play the game. But are you getting the vibe that Cedric Coward is ready for the season? And that's not the Grizzlies' job. That's not their role to go out in social media and talk about how the amazing Cedric Coward is locked in and ready to go. And that's not Cedric's job either, to go promote himself in that way. But we didn't see much of Cedric Coward in the preseason or in the summer league. He was held out. He wasn't allowed to go for half of the summer league experience. Why is that? Maybe I am projecting my concerns about how this Memphis Grizzlies roster has gotten worse. And I'm putting that into anger toward Locked On NBA hosts who are simply acknowledging the fact that Ja has missed some time and Jaren is foul prone. And Santi Aldama, you probably can't put him in front of Mark Williams. It's probably not realistic to put him in front of Dylan Brooks. Santi is not that guy. He's not that dude. 111 feels right to me. And because Santi is at 111 and that feels right, am I wrong about Ja and Jaren? The reality of Santi Aldama being the third best Grizzly on this list. And again, other guys made the cut. Ty Jerome was in the conversation, a few spots behind. There's other surprises on this list that we'll talk more about. Jalen Wells made the cut. So the Grizzlies have some dudes that received votes, but it wasn't enough. And the Grizzlies only have two guys in the top 100 in the entire National Basketball Association. Would we be feeling different if Desmond Bane was that third guy in the top 50? Would I be less angry? How much of this is me being concerned that the Memphis Grizzlies are not primed to take a step forward, that they're going to take a step back, even as Ja and Jaren enter their primes over the next year or so? Maybe that is the way to go. Maybe I'm in the wrong all along. Nah. Of course I'm not wrong. It's the other idiots. It's the other Locked On podcasters. Those guys don't know what they're talking about. Ja and Jaren are totally going to be fine. And Santi Aldama is probably too low as well. But where are you at in the comments? Let me know on X at Joe Mullinax. Does Santi being at 111 feel right to you? Does it make the rankings of Ja and Jaren maybe feel a little bit cleaner? Let me know in the comments. When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, we're going to close out this episode of the show talking about other takeaways from the top 100. I'm going to share the top 10, how I would have had them ranked, and more coming up on this edition of the show. Stick around. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. It is I, Joe Mullinax, with you, finishing up this Wednesday edition of the podcast. No to Michael Cole. He will be back later this week. Excited to have him back on the show, get back into a routine as preseason approaches. And to be honest with you, I'm excited to move on from this list. Not to hate on Nick or anybody that had a large role in cultivating and developing the top 100. I've just been angry a lot for the last 48 hours or so, and that's not a healthy mind space to be in. I want to be happy. I want to find joy. So we're going to wrap up at least my end of the conversation on this stuff, taking a look at other aspects that surprised me. And I'm going to begin with one that doesn't have a graphic, right? Because Zach Edey was on the list. I didn't mention him earlier. Jalen Wells, Ty Jerome, guys that weren't in the top 100, but they were in the receiving votes category, right? Somebody that I thought was going to be way higher was Cason Wallace. Like, Ty Jerome is rated in front of Cason Wallace of the Oklahoma City Thunder. And I think that's ridiculous. Cason Wallace is a really good basketball player. Like, Jordan Poole is ranked in front of Cason Wallace. I struggle with that. To be honest with you, I kind of struggle with Cason Wallace being behind Santi Aldama. Now, I think you can make an argument closer to the top. Like, Stephon Castle probably should have been ranked higher in the actual top 100. Cooper Flagg was number 80, hasn't even played an NBA game. That's kind of ridiculous. Castle should have been in the mix. But I do think that it's fair to point out that there are guys that probably should have been higher up that didn't make the cut that aren't Memphis Grizzlies, right? Santi Aldama obviously included in that. The top 10 for us overall, and again, this is showing on YouTube. If you're not on YouTube, Nikola Jokic, number 1, SGA, number 2. Those are slam dunk home run picks to me. Giannis at number 3. What he's doing in Eurobasket kind of serves as a reminder of him being that third best player in the world. Luka Doncic at 4. I'm totally cool with that. Steph Curry at number 5. Feels high to me, right? And we as hosts, we kind of had a battle. We had to vote again and restart the process a couple of months ago regarding injury, right? Like, you'll notice Jason Tatum at number 10 on this list. Jason Tatum, if he is healthy, is in no way, shape, or form number 10 on that list. I had Jason Tatum at number 5 in my ballot, but we struggled as a cohort, as a cavalcade, as a gaggle of podcast hosts, figuring out how to handle injuries, right? Like, obviously Jason Tatum unlikely to play very much, if at all, in 2025, 2026. So if Jason Tatum's healthy, he's a top 5 player in the NBA, but he is not healthy. What do you do with Jason Tatum? I think that led to him falling down the rankings a little bit. Steph Curry at 5 feels a little bit high to me. Maybe Anthony Edwards should be in that spot. I struggle with Donovan Mitchell at 9, a really good scorer for the Cavs. But again, I think that we as a group of podcasters overvalued the Cleveland Cavaliers. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But the way that I read that ranking, the Cavs are the favorite in the Eastern Conference. Because you got Jalen Brunson at number 8 for the Knicks. And then I'm going on to the top 11 through 20. You've got Cat at number 19, Karl Anthony Towns. And then you continue on, and oh God, that's the one that made me mad. Don't want to look at that one again. And then as you carry on, you see that the Knicks are not as represented in the top 50, right? I'm all the way into the 50 now. OG Anunoby checks in at number 45. So if the Knicks are a team that should be a contender in the Eastern Conference, the Cavaliers got them beat in terms of raw talent. The list that I just had up there, OG Anunoby at number 45, not too far behind that. At number 57, you've got Jared Allen of the Cleveland Cavaliers. So that means the Cavs have 4 dudes in the top 57 in the entire league. Crown them now. They're the Eastern Conference champs. It's going to be the Oklahoma City Thunder against the Cleveland Cavaliers, according to Locked On Grizzlies hosts. They're really high on Cleveland. I struggle with that. Another thing that I struggled with was Kevin Durant at number 11. That feels high. I don't know. Maybe I'm hating on the old guys too much on this podcast. Maybe I need to look in the mirror here. But again, the top 11 through 20 were Kevin Durant, LeBron James, Tyrese Halliburton, Anthony Davis, Cade Cunningham. I talked about that on yesterday's show, the ridiculousness of Cunningham at 15. Mobley at 16. Kawhi at 17. I think it's ridiculous Devin Booker was at 18. They filmed a video saying Devin Booker's underrated. That's ridiculous. I think Devin Booker's overrated. Cat at number 19, and then Jalen Williams at number 20. Again, I can't believe Jaren or Ja is not in that top 20. That's just fascinating to me. But Kevin Durant at number 11, the dude can score with the best of them, right? He's still one of the very best scorers in the entire NBA. He's arguably the greatest scorer in the history of the league in terms of talent and skill. But number 11 at this stage of his career seems a bit high. At least to me, it seems a bit high, considering his limitations positionally and defensively. He's basically a big at this stage of the game. I know DeMichael disagrees with me on that, but that's where I'm at in that regard. I was surprised by those numbers there. I was surprised by the fact that we're talking about Norm Powell at number 60 on the Heat. Number 60 seemed high to me. Norm Powell and Austin Reeves are very similar as players. Reeves being at number 58 seemed a little bit high. And then you go on to number 61. The Dyson Daniels love is absurd. Dyson Daniels is the number 61 best player in the NBA. Dyson Daniels is better than Fred VanVleet. Dyson Daniels is better than Brandon Ingram. Maybe I'm reading these rankings wrong, but I really don't see the love affair with the fountain of youth, not in terms of older players, but in terms of really kind of jumping on a Cade Cunningham and Evan Mobley. I don't think these guys have done enough to warrant being ranked that high, whereas you have multiple defensive all-defense team member Jaren Jackson Jr., most improved player, rookie of the year, all sorts of different awards, Ja Morant. You have a track record with these guys, and you have unproven, in my mind, in my opinion, players ranked so highly ahead of them. I really struggled with that. And then one more that really surprised me was the ranking, and I mentioned it a little bit earlier, Cooper Flagg at number 80. So Stephon Castle doesn't make the top 100. But Cooper Flagg, who has not played a minute of actual NBA basketball, is a top 80 player in the NBA. That's not what I would have done. That wouldn't have been on my ballot. Let's just put it like that. So hopefully this was a fun exercise. Hopefully you got something out of these last couple of episodes. I know that I feel better after venting for roughly an hour. Hopefully your earbuds and our eardrums are still working properly, and I didn't yell too loud, and hopefully you agree with me because I am in the right. Jaren Jackson Jr., Ja Morant, ranked too low on this. People are down on the Grizzlies. It's on Memphis to kind of show that folks are viewing them in the wrong way. Thank you so much for being with me on this edition of Locked On Grizzlies. Thanks for making us your first listen today. Friendly reminder, obviously, the Locked On NBA Top 100 is here. It was voted on by the NBA hosts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Our Top 100 was formed by experts that cover these teams and players every day. Clearly, they don't cover the Grizzlies every day, but that's okay. I'm going to move on after this one. Find the full list of Locked On Sports today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. We already had our reaction yesterday, obviously today as well. DeMichael will likely be back wanting to finish up, maybe talk about surprises. He didn't get a chance to do that today, so maybe we'll put a little DeMichael Cole time aside on our next episode to make sure that we're putting a nice bow on the top 100 going into our next show. Like, comment, rate, review, subscribe wherever you get podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, Google. Make sure that you are making us a part of your everyday Memphis Grizzlies and NBA content consumption. Become an everydayer. Hang out with us and make us your first listen each and every time an episode drops, which now we are back to 5 days a week, which means we will be back tomorrow. Until then, I am out of here for today. I need to rest my voice. I yelled a lot. I'm Joe Mullinax. Make sure you're back with us the next time we're here. Until then, see ya from Locked On Grizzlies.